Alright, welcome back. I guess the big news of the wrestling world nowadays is the fact that guess who's back? Hulk Hogan has decided he is going to make his triumphant return to wrestling and host WrestleMania. By the time this video goes up, it's going to be old news. But that's the big thing now, is that Hulk Hogan has made his return to the WWE and is going to host WrestleMania. A lot of people have asked me my opinion on that. And my opinion is, I have no opinion. Because I guess I do have a few opinions, because otherwise there wouldn't be a video. I'm drinking Newcastle, yeah. Good stuff. I got a case of this for $25, and that's pretty cheap comparing it's Newcastle. But I guess the reason why I wanted to make this video is the fact that when they said that Hulk Hogan is going to host WrestleMania, I always get a laugh because, alright, here's my question. What exactly does that mean? What does Hulk Hogan hosting WrestleMania mean? Well, let's look back at the time when The Rock hosted WrestleMania. I think it was WrestleMania 27, I want to say. It was announced that he was going to host it. And what that meant is he came out, he did his same generic Rock catchphrases, his same generic Rock promos, and that was it. He had no control over the entire event. He didn't make matches, he didn't do jack shit, is the best way I can describe it. Of course, he did something at the end, but this is going to be one of them videos where it's probably going to be broken up into a couple parts because I have a lot to talk about. Just this whole Hulk Hogan wanting to host. Okay, you know what it is? Okay, let's say you want to host a party. You want to, you're going to invite friends over to your house to have a party. When you say you host something, that means it's going to be at your place. You're going to provide the food, the entertainment. Your job as a host is to make people have a good time, to give people a reason to come back. It's supposed to be fun. You are the fun maker of your party when you host it. And now, with Hulk Hogan hosted, and I live in a weird house nowadays. I have 3 animals running around. It makes for noisy times. That was the cats, by the way. But, okay. Getting back to this whole thing. Hosting WrestleMania. It's not like Hulk Hogan is saying, you know what? Come over to my house and have WrestleMania. He's not saying that. And honestly, I don't understand. Alright, I'll just say it. Hulk Hogan has no more marquee value. None. I don't give a shit what he did in the past. I don't give a shit what he did in 96. Okay? His best days are over. His best years are over. And if you think parading Hulk Hogan around is going to boost ratings, because that's what it is. You announce somebody huge coming onto your show to boost the ratings, but it's not going to do anything. Having The Rock at WrestleMania didn't make that WrestleMania suck any less. In fact, I think it sucked even more because he was there. That was a terrible WrestleMania. But okay, all right. You're Vince McMahon, and you're thinking, okay, we need to boost our ratings. We need a big name to get in there. What's Hulk Hogan doing? I guess it's okay to have him back for a little bit, but come on. His best years are so far behind him, and nobody cares who Hulk Hogan is. Your average wrestling fan nowadays doesn't even know who the fuck Hulk Hogan is. They know he was a name back in the 80s. Whoop-de-shit. He's what John Cena has been modeled after. Woo! Yippee! But as I started thinking about Hulk Hogan hosting, I started thinking about the other hosts that we have, because this is not the first time they have done this. I'm not talking WrestleMania. I'm talking the ungodly time when Raw had their guest hosts. Oh my God, that was the worst time to be a wrestling fan. And I know why they did this, but here's story time. Vince McMahon was involved in a feud with Donald Trump. Yes, that Donald Trump. And they had a match at WrestleMania. That's where Vince got his head shaved. But who cares about that shit? Somewhere along the line, I'm not sure when, but Donald Trump purchased Monday Night Raw. Explain that one to me. Vince McMahon sold the show of Monday Night Raw to Donald Trump. Now, what exactly did that mean? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't understand the whole concept of that. It just came out of nowhere too, because one day just Donald Trump says, "Oh, by the way, I own Raw now." Yay? What does that mean? It would be one thing. It would be one thing if Donald Trump said, "Okay, I bought Raw." This was back when the brand separation was still going on. Like, I bought Monday Night Raw. In other words, the contracts of everybody on Raw now belong to me. And Vince McMahon owns SmackDown still. I assumed this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to have more emphasis on the brand separation, to where Donald Trump and Vince McMahon had like their own competing brands and go head to head after a while. I assume that's what they wanted to do. I don't know how enthusiastic Donald Trump was being in wrestling, because it doesn't matter. Professional wrestling is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You know, every time you watch a Raw or a SmackDown or a pay-per-view, there's people there. I mean, there's thousands of people there. You go to a house show. I go to house shows in Hershey. There's people there. There's thousands of people there. It's a very lucrative business. But at the same time, it's still professional wrestling. it will never, and I do repeat this, never be considered legitimate. It will always be considered a joke. Doesn't matter how badly they get beat down. It doesn't matter how crippled these motherfuckers get in their lives. At the end of the day, no matter what, it will always be seen as a fakey, made-up form of entertainment. And that's sad. And that's really a sad thing to think, but that's how it is. You know, Steve Austin nearly breaks his neck when Owen Hart gave him a pile driver. So many people out there probably looked at that, oh, that's fake. Who fucking cares? That's fake. You know? It's so hard. I don't know. It's so hard to take it seriously because they've always had this bullshit mentality of we're just going to be completely stupid. It's so hard to explain. But getting back to Donald Trump owning Raw, like that did anything. Like I said, I don't know if he wanted to keep doing something with wrestling because I don't know if it was hurting his image or his name. But essentially, the reign of Trump only lasted 1 week. And Vince McMahon comes back. He's like, I want my show back. I want Raw back. You bought my show. I want it back. I was thinking, like, Donald Trump buying Raw is the equivalent of Tom Brell buying Rip in No Holds Barred. How does that even work? I guess it doesn't matter because Donald suddenly he's like, all right, okay, you can have it back. And Vince says, what? Really? Like, yeah, you can have it back. Go ahead, you want Raw back, go ahead and take it. And okay. So, right there, the whole storyline with Donald Trump buying Raw equated to exactly nothing. It did nothing. It meant nothing. It pushed the business nowhere. It did nothing. Who cares? And it was quickly forgotten about. It didn't even matter but here's the kicker. Donald Trump says, oh, by the way, Vince, while I was in charge, I booked some guest hosts for Raw. And they're going to come by every week and be on the show. And as soon, and I mean as soon, as Donald Trump said, I booked guest hosts for Raw, I got this really bad pain in my stomach because this was going to suck. And I know why they did it. And you want to know why they did this whole guest hosting thing for so long? It's because of this. Linda McMahon at the time was running for Senate. And they had to do something to clean up their image. So that's when wrestling went back to being PG. They cut out the gratuitous sex. They cut out the violence. They cut out the blood. They cut out the wild chair shots. It may have had other factors to deal with it. You know, the Chris Benoit incidents, just all these young wrestlers dying. It may have had a little bit to do with that. But mostly it was because Linda McMahon was running for state senate. And they had to clean up their image. So, almost overnight, wrestling changed. And not just for the best. The sex, the gratuitous violence. Okay, we didn't need all that. I will admit, it was okay to look at, but at the same time, did we really need it? No, of course we didn't. But it got to a point where any type of violence was really kind of shied away from. I remember watching, I think it was Randy Orton and John Cena in their 95th match they've ever had. And I believe it was the Iron Man match. And this was the match where it was like, this is it. Like, they're never wrestling again after this, which, by the way, that was a lie. But you had, during the match, John Cena, I think, gets cut over the eye and starts bleeding. And like that would usually be like the dramatic part of the match, because now John Cena is bleeding. He's gonna lose a lot of blood during this match, and since it's an Iron Man match, he's gonna have to wrestle for an hour losing blood. But as soon as he started bleeding, the referee looked at him like, whoop, 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 stop, stop, stop the clock, stop the match. We got to get this fixed. And I'm sitting there, and I'm saying to myself, what? What the? And a friend of mine was watching it with me, and he said, well, maybe they just did this to make sure there was no controversy. And I said, I assume that's what it is. But yet, another pay-per-view later on, somebody else had gotten cut. They did the exact same thing. They stopped the match to glue the cut closed. Like, they took super glue and just closed it. And I'm thinking, like, that's not a coincidence. They are really gun-shy about violence. Like, no amount of blood on their show. Like, we can't have violence on our wrestling show. That's just wrong. You know? And I had heard a long time ago that Vince McMahon once said that if he could, he would take wrestling completely out of wrestling. Not even have wrestling at all. It would just be, World Entertainment, WE. I remember him saying that. He said that. He goes, if there was some way to take the professional wrestling out of professional wrestling, I would do it. Because nobody cares about that. Nobody gives a shit about the athleticism. No, of course not. We care about your stupid, fakey storylines, you know? I want to see more. I want to see Katie Vick Part 2. That's what I want to know. Fuck you, Vince. I am so bipolar about Vince McMahon. One day I'm praising his name. The next day I'm thinking, you suck. But back to my original rant, the Raw guest hosts. Now, some of them. But before I get to that, I just want to say this. Donald Trump was in charge of Raw for what? 1 week? Within that week, he got a lot of fucking people. He got a lot of guest hosts. If we're going total kayfabe here, he would have had to been on his phone the absolute second that Raw went off the air and said that he owned it now. Like, the ink on the contract was still wet by the time he picked up his phone and started calling people and say, hey, would you like to be on Raw? Would you like to guest host Raw? And like I said, this whole storyline was so insignificant that everybody forgot that that Donald Trump was even a part of it, because this went on for, my God, almost, I want to say, almost a year and a half. Hell, I want to say more than that. I want to say at least 2 years that this shit went on. And this was a bad time for wrestling. Okay, some of the guest hosts were okay. They were mostly the wrestlers. The wrestlers that came on to host Raw, quote unquote, they did a good job because They came from the business. They knew what they had to do. But some of the fucking people that they had on there had no business even being associated with wrestling. I'm trying to think. They had Jeremy Piven as a guest host one time. And most of the guest hosts were there to promote a movie that they were doing or promote something. They were using Raw as a platform to promote their shit. So Jeremy Piven had a movie coming out, and you knew right away that this guy didn't know what the hell he was doing, because he comes out and says, "We're 2 weeks away from the biggest pay-per-view of the summer, Super Slam." And Triple H, I think, was in the ring there with him, and kind of said, like, "Jeremy, that's Summer Slam, not Super Slam." And Piven's like, "Oh, right, yeah, that's what I meant." Right there, if I had a gun, I probably would have. I started blasting. These fucking people don't give a shit about wrestling. They didn't care. They just knew that they were getting free time to plug their stupid movies and their TV shows and whatever the hell they else did. But what were some of the other really bad ones? They had like sports stars on. I think they had like LeBron James hosted Raw one night. Who cares? They had like singers hosting Raw. I think they had the Muppets hosting Raw one night. Really? The fucking Muppets were hosting Raw. They had Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne on there. And by the way, poor fucking Ozzy Osbourne. You go back and watch that, you knew he didn't know where the hell he was. He had no clue. In fact, he doesn't know where he is half the time. I'm sure Sharon, like, "Come on, Ozzy, we're going to this place. You just stand there and talk when I tell you to talk." And poor Ozzy is like, "Alright, Sharon, I'll do that. Who's this match? We have John Sheamus versus Evan Braun tonight in the main event." And that's what you think I'm like. He did that. He called. He said somebody said John Sheamus. I don't think that's his real name. They called Evan Braun. Somebody would call. He's like, "Oh yeah, that Jamaican guy, Kobe Johnston is his name, right? Kobe Johnston, Kofi Kingston." Who else? They butchered so many names. Dennis Miller was out there. He was introducing Triple H. He called him the Show, Triple H. Like, really? But like I said. But again, I ask you. I've said this many times before. When I watch a stupid storyline, it can be the stupidest thing ever, but if it makes a point, if it accomplishes something, if it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and we get through the beginning, the middle, to the end, it might be a stupid journey, but as long as we get there, I don't care. It will be it could be funny as hell, but as long as we have a conclusion, that's all I care about. What was the conclusion for this? All of these guest hosts, what exactly did this accomplish? Nothing. It got their point across. They got to plug their shows. They got to plug their whatever the hell they were plugging. I don't even know. Yeah, like LeBron James hosting Raw. What wrestling fan gives two shits about LeBron James? Who gives a shit about basketball? I'm not talking like basketball sucks. If you like it, great. I'm talking wrestling fans. Wrestling fans don't give two shits about basketball. It's like I want to see wrestling. That's it. So, really, this whole thing goes in full circle with how I began this video. Hulk Hogan hosting WrestleMania. What exactly is this going to accomplish? What exactly is this going to do for the business in general? Is it going to make wrestling elevate even further? No. Because Hulk Hogan is insignificant. No one cares anymore. No one gives two shits about Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, he's 60 years old. He's not wrestling. Don't even get that in your head. If they announce that he's having a match, don't even get excited about it. Because in TNA, Hulk Hogan had to get like really evasive back surgery, where they basically shoved a steel rod up his ass and braced his spine with it. I mean, it was really fucking gruesome. It was like an 8-hour back surgery. Like, he's not wrestling. He's not going to get in that ring and take bumps. Now, Ric Flair would. If they said Ric Flair was hosting Raw, that might be a different story, because Ric Flair is legit. He's a legit... Like, I'm not saying he's a real wrestler. No, not by any means. But, I mean... You know, Hulk Hogan's just there to collect a paycheck and do as little work as possible. Ric Flair, on the other hand, he would fucking make WrestleMania awesome, because he'd be out there, he'd be doing his Ric Flair shit, he'd be ripping his jacket off and elbow dropping it, and he'd be going, woo! It would be Ric Flair. This is Hulk Hogan doing as little as possible. That's all I have. If you're excited about WrestleMania now, don't be. It's still gonna suck. Because what they have right now, they have 2 matches signed. They have Randy Orton against Batista, whoop-de-doo, and I'm going to assume The Undertaker against Brock Lesnar, where we're going to have the annual Undertaker match where he's going to put his streak on the line against Brock Lesnar. And people have already said, well, the streak is over. The streak is over. Hey, you really think The Undertaker is going to fucking lose at WrestleMania? You know, it would be... For The Undertaker to lose at WrestleMania, I would not put him in there with a part-time wrestler like Brock Lesnar. I would put him in the ring with a younger guy who is just coming out of the camp, who is like wanting to make a name for himself. Put him in the ring with The Undertaker. If it's his last match, The Undertaker would gladly lose and elevate this kid. Like, if I was starting wrestling, that's what I would say. I'm like, put me in the ring with The Undertaker at WrestleMania and let me win. Like, you want to really have somebody's stock rise up really quick, have them beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Because that's bragging rights right there. You could ride that wave as far as you want, all the way to the world title. Like, I'm the guy that beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. But again, at the same time, what exactly did you prove? You proved you beat The Undertaker. Whoop-de-doo. People beating The Undertaker his entire... That's why I never understood this whole WrestleMania streak. Where it's the biggest match. Yeah, it's the best match on the entire card. No doubt about it. Every time The Undertaker dusts off his old ass and gets to WrestleMania, it's the best match. Because he busts his ass. He's one of those few guys that knows that at WrestleMania, you throw caution to the wind, and he can, because it's his only match. You think about it. The only time The Undertaker wrestles is at WrestleMania. So he can go out there and do all the crazy, insane dives because he doesn't have to go to work the next day. He's made his millions, or I don't even know how much he makes for a WrestleMania appearance. It's got to be up there. But yeah, I don't see him laying down for a part-timer like Brock Lesnar. And speaking of part-timers, I'm going to pause it right now because this is going to be, the next part is going to be the same thing. So I'm just going to pause it. I'll be right back.